Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at the hands-off protests back in 2025.
Right. A really significant moment.
Yeah, you flagged this one and, listeners want to get the real story quickly. So we're diving into the sources on what caused them, just how big they were, and, well, what it all meant.
And the scale's the first thing that hits you. Millions of people.
In all 50 states, which is kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
All under that hands-off our democracy message. You just don't see that every day.
No, you really don't. Our sources are pointing to, what, over 1,400 separate protests?
1,400, wow.
Yeah. I mean, everywhere. Big cities, sure. But small towns, too? It suggests something pretty fundamental was touched to get that kind of reaction.
Okay, so let's dig into that. What were the triggers, the sparks, that lit this fire?
Well, the material highlights, first off, some really big cuts to social programs.
And gutting whole agencies, right?
Exactly. And those things aren't abstract, are they? They hit people directly. Access to services, that sense of security, it creates real anxiety.
Yeah, I can see that. And then there was the Elon Musk appointment, Department of Government Efficiency. That seemed controversial.
Extremely. That was a major flashpoint, it seems.
Why specifically? What happened right after?
Well, the sources talk about thousands of layoffs, pretty much immediately, and closing down essential federal services.
Like Social Security offices.
Yes, exactly. Shuttering Social Security offices. Imagine the impact of that. It's not gradual, it's sudden.
Okay, so you have these big federal changes, layoffs. But it wasn't only that, was it? Something about state climate initiatives.
Right. The administration also tried to shut down state-level climate efforts.
Ah, so targeting local policies, too.
Precisely. And that seemed to really galvanize people on a different level. You saw, I think the source mentioned over 10,000 rallying just in Tampa Bay on that.
10,000 in one place. That tells you something about hitting close to home, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows how federal moves can clash with what people see as important locally, especially the environment. And it brought more people into the fold, feeling like their interests were threatened.
And the fold was pretty broad based on the source. It wasn't just one type of group protesting.
Not at all. It mentions over 150 different organizations involved.
Wow. Who were they?
Civil rights groups, labor unions, LGBTQ plus organizations, environmental defenders. A really diverse coalition.
So what does that kind of unity tell us across all these different interests?
It suggests, that they all saw a common threat, something that went beyond their specific issues, maybe a perceived threat to fundamental rights or principles that affected everyone.
Okay, so huge protests, broad coalition. How did the administration respond? The source talks about a crackdown.
Yes, it details 41 new anti-protest bills being introduced.
41. In how long?
In just the first few months of 2025, spread across 22 different states.
22 states. That's
Yeah.
quite a coordinated effort. What was the goal there, presumably?
Well, the likely intent seems pretty clear. Intimidation. To silence dissent, make people think twice about joining these protests.
How? What were the teeth in these laws?
Potential for steep fines, even jail time for protesters. The message was basically, stop protesting or face serious consequences. It definitely raises questions about the right to protest versus government authority.
Okay, so pulling back to the bigger picture then, what was the core message here? It feels like more than just reacting to, say, budget cuts or one appointment.
I think that's right. The source frames it as really a broader concern for democracy itself.
Hands off our democracy.
Exactly. The movement seemed to be demanding protection for, well, several things. Civil liberties, social safety net, even the ability of states to manage their own affairs, like with those climate initiatives. It was a reaction against perceived overreach.
And it's interesting, the source we're using tries to stay neutral on the movement itself, right? Just reporting.
Yes, it focuses on conveying the information, what happened.
But it ends with that line about Americans being wide awake and determined. What do you make of that conclusion?
I think it emphasizes the impact these events had on public awareness. That regardless of the specific outcomes, there was this heightened civic engagement, a real sense that people were paying attention and willing to act. It wasn't just a blip.
Right. So just to wrap the key points for everyone listening.
Yeah.
The hands-off protests in 2025 were this huge nationwide response.
Triggered by major policy changes, federal and state.
Yeah. Social program cuts, the Musk appointment fallout, climate rollbacks. And it brought together a really diverse group of people,
And that was meant by a significant government response, these anti-protest laws.
all pointing potentially to this deeper unease about the state of American democracy at the time.
Precisely, a real confluence of factors sparking widespread concern and action.
So here's something to think about after we finish. Looking back, what does that level of mobilization, so many people, so widespread, combined with a kind of government reaction, what does it truly signal about the relationship between citizens and government in the mid-2020s? What might the long-term effects be on civic life and how power operates? Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us.